Welcome to a story where nothing is as it seems. May this journey keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last word. Best wishes for an unforgettable reading experience. I had always thought I knew Marissa, or at least I wanted to believe I did. For 4 years, I had been utterly consumed by her, believing every word, every laugh, every smile was ours alone. But the night it all unraveled, I realized how hollow my world had been, and how expertly someone had been orchestrating every move she made. It began innocently enough, a notification ping on my phone, an unknown email with a single attachment. Curiosity, the trait that had always been my downfall, made me click. There it was, a video. At first, it looked normal, my Marissa, sitting at a cafe, laughing, talking to someone. Then I noticed the subtle things, the way the camera angle shifted slightly, the grain of the footage almost imperceptibly distorted, and then the voice, familiar, almost chilling in its clarity. Someone was narrating her every gesture, every word, as though they were inside the room with her. I froze. My heart pounded. This wasn't just a fling. This was surveillance. And the more I watched, the more impossible it seemed to ignore the truth. Marissa wasn't just betraying me. Someone else had been carefully recording her, orchestrating the very moments that would shatter my reality. My mind spun with questions. Who? Why? And most terrifyingly, had they been watching me too? The next days were a blur of paranoia. I followed her discreetly, trying to catch any clue, any hint of a shadow that might explain this surreal invasion of our lives. Every cafe she entered, every street she walked, every text she sent seemed now to carry a hidden weight, a secret lens capturing her every thought. I confronted her once, cautiously, in the dimly lit hallway of our apartment. "Marissa, is there something I need to know?" My voice was steady, but my hands trembled. She laughed, a soft, careless laugh that made my blood boil. "You always think there's a conspiracy, don't you?" she said, eyes glinting with amusement. Or was it mockery? I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe it was just my mind twisting the world into nightmares. But the evidence was undeniable. That night, I went through our home with a fine-tooth comb, searching for hidden cameras, microphones, anything that could confirm my suspicions. And I found it. A tiny pinhole camera, cleverly hidden inside the smoke detector in our living room, pointed directly at the spot where she often sat with her laptop. My stomach turned. The invasion wasn't just her secret affair. It was a meticulous, deliberate breach of trust that went far beyond betrayal. The first breakthrough came when I traced the metadata embedded in the videos. They weren't coming from an anonymous source. They were being uploaded in real time, with timestamps perfectly synchronized to her daily routine. And then the message appeared on my phone, a text that wasn't from Marissa. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Fear surged, but so did the rage that had been simmering inside me for years. Someone was controlling the narrative of our lives, manipulating Marissa, manipulating me, and I couldn't stand by any longer. I had to find out who. I began to investigate everyone in her life, friends, colleagues, casual acquaintances. Patterns emerged, inconsistencies that didn't add up. There was one person who seemed always to know where she was, always to appear in the periphery of her life. A man named Victor, a tech entrepreneur with an uncanny knowledge of surveillance technology. He was charming, the kind of person who could easily win trust and conceal obsession beneath a veneer of professionalism. But why him? Why Marissa? The confrontation was inevitable. I tracked him to a luxurious loft, its interior stark and sterile, screens lining the walls with images of Marissa in every conceivable setting. Her apartment, the cafes she frequented, even the route she took to work. My chest tightened as I realized the depth of his obsession. He wasn't just a voyeur. He was the architect of a meticulously constructed illusion, a man who had inserted himself into our lives to control, to observe, to dominate from the shadows. Victor looked up from his console, his smile calm, unsettlingly confident. "I knew you'd come," he said. "You always were too curious for your own good." I felt my hands clench into fists. Why? Why her? Why us? His smile widened. "Because people like her, like you, are interesting, predictable, and yet so desperate to believe in love and trust. It's fascinating to watch the strings being pulled, isn't it?" Every instinct screamed at me to flee, to destroy him. But I realized something in that moment. The power had always been mine. He could manipulate the lens, the videos, even Marissa. But he couldn't control my mind. I left, silently, my plan forming in the shadows of my thoughts. Over the next days, I subtly turned the tables. I let Victor believe he was still in control, letting Marissa walk freely while I traced every digital footprint he left. Then, one night, as he monitored her apartment through hidden cameras, I intercepted the feed. Victor didn't know I had figured out the network he had built. I left a small message on one of the screens inside his loft, a single phrase that would haunt him. "I see you." The aftermath was poetic in its justice. Victor disappeared, leaving behind a trail of destroyed equipment and empty servers. Marissa, once oblivious to the manipulation, finally understood the invisible cage she had been living in. I never confronted her with anger, only with the quiet truth that some things cannot be unseen, some trust cannot be restored. And as she wept, the reality of what had happened crashing down around her, I felt the bitter satisfaction of surviving a nightmare orchestrated by a mind far more dangerous than either of us. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still picture those screens, still hear that calm, controlled voice of Victor. But I have learned something profound in this ordeal. Fear can be turned into power, and betrayal, even when layered with deception, can be unraveled with patience and resolve. I survived because I refused to let the shadows dictate my reality. And in that survival, I found a clarity that no secret camera, no manipulative mind, could ever take away. The suspense isn't over, it never really is, but knowing who watches, and knowing you can outsmart them, that is a victory far sweeter than vengeance. Best wishes, and thank you for reading this story that tests the boundaries of trust, obsession, and human resilience. May it keep your heart racing and your mind guessing until the very end.